Hi, I'm Kathy Coslett, and this is Cooking Classic. We are here in the studio of the Culinary Arts Institute on the campus of Luzerne County Community College. Our guest tonight you're probably very familiar with, Executive Chef Dave Pembleton.
Hello.
Hello there. Now, Dave's a regular around here, and why not? He's a regular here at the Culinary Arts Institute. As a matter of fact, he's one of the guys that actually got the pastry department up and running here at LCCC. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How the pastry department's been around for quite a while.
Yes, it's our 10th year, and it started, a few students came to me and they were leaving our school because they wanted to pursue a pastry arts degree, which we did not have. So I started asking some questions as to why and how could we start one. So I did some research over a summer, went and visited some other culinary schools with baking and pastry programs, and I jotted some things down and put a curriculum together that I thought might work. And we had an old broken down classroom up in Building 2 that we didn't really use for much besides storage. Mm-hmm. So I thought that, hey, if we could get that and we could put that curriculum, we could put something together. And then Sal Shander was instrumental in helping with the administration of it. Jim Phillips helped us put the ovens together. Rich Nemitz helped me with some of the recipes and the things that would be needed for the pastry program. And I ended up writing the curriculum and an intermediate course, a C course they call it. And then you run that for 2 consecutive semesters. And then if students sign up for it, then they deem it a course that they might run, and that's what we've done. And they ran, right? They did, and there were a lot of naysayers, and there were a lot of speed bumps and those types of things. But I found that the system really does work if you use it in the way it's supposed to be used. So we got one little thing at a time, and before you know it, we had a pastry arts program up and running. And then when we finally got the last piece of the puzzle, which was a full-time instructor in Rich Nemitz, who owned a bakery in the area for about 25 years, that was the last piece that we needed. And now we've been successfully running that program now for 10 years. That's incredible. Yeah. And what kinds of classes might a student take in the pastry arts department here? Well, we have an intro to pastry arts, which is primarily breads and quick breads and those types of things, going into Pastry 102, which goes further into pastry and puff pastries and those types of things, breakfast pastries. 103, which goes into cakes. 104, which is a plated dessert class. 105, which is a specialty torte class. And 106, which is a chocolate class, decorative baking they call it. So that's all the things they've learned and really putting some artistic flair to it.
All right, so I think we're starting at 102 tonight, is that right?
Yeah, either the end of 101 or the beginning of 102, right.
All right, what is on the menu for tonight?
What's on the menu tonight? We're going to make a thing called Eclairs, okay, starting with a pâte à choux dough filled with a pastry cream and topped with a delicious chocolate ganache.
That sounds terrific, and what that really means to all of us is we get to eat dessert first tonight.
Right.
So don't go away, we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Colton. I'm a culinary student at Luzerne County Community College with your culinary tip of the day. A pineapple is a delicious tropical fruit available all year round and is used in salads, presentations, and cooked foods. Some people, however, find it quite difficult to cut. So today, I'm going to show you an interesting technique to cutting the pineapple. So first, with our kitchen knife, we're going to simply cut it in half. A little difficult at first, but once you get it in there, it shouldn't be too hard. And then we're going to do the same process again by cutting it in half. Now, with our quarter piece, we're going to cut the bottom off. And now we're done with our kitchen knife, and we're going to take our boning knife, and we're just going to cut this piece off that all pineapples have that really isn't edible, which is the core. We're just going to take that right off. Now we're going to do the part that's considered a little bit difficult. After you give it a couple of tries, you're just going to cut along the edge of the pineapple. Now we're going to cut it in half. Just the top part, not the full pineapple completely, and then whatever sizable pieces you want. And now we can just place nice little toothpicks to give it a nice little look to it when serving to others. You can also use those little plastic knives they sell at local stores. Those are kind of cool. Then we have like so, and we can serve it like that, or you can make a nice little fruit presentation like we have right here for you. And that is your culinary tip of the day. Bon appetit!
Welcome back to Cooking Classic. I'm Kathy Kozlov, and I'm with Executive Chef Dave Pembleton.
Hello.
Hello. And we're about to make eclairs, right?
Eclairs, right.
So, what's the first step in this whole process?
Well, Kathy, I think the first step is to make the dough.
Okay.
And the dough is a very special dough called a pâte à choux, which has a very, it has a lot of uses in the kitchen, okay? We should know that baking is more of a science than is culinary art.
Yeah, I hear a lot of the chefs, talk about that they love pastry arts, but you really do have to follow a recipe. You have to be really careful. It's not a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
It can't be. If you put too many mushrooms in a chicken marsala, it just takes a little bit more like mushrooms, that kind of thing. But if you put too much yeast in a bread dough, we're going to have a problem. So this is more of a science. So it does follow a formula or a recipe, and it's important that you follow it very, very carefully.
Okay.
So we've started with some water, some cold water, and to that I'm going to add some butter, okay? And in the bake shop, you should know too that you would use unsweetened butter. Unsalted butter, I mean. And the reason being is you don't want that salt to interfere with the recipe.
Okay.
So I just put some the water in there, a little bit of butter. We're at high heat, and we're gonna. One thing, Kathy, unique about this dough that's not like any other dough in the bake shop is it's actually cooked on top of the stove before it's actually baked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's the only one that I know of that does that, which makes it a very unique thing.
What is it? What does it do differently to cook it on top of the stove and then bake it? What happens?
Well, this particular dough, what happens whenever you bake with it, it puffs up and it gets very, very hollow inside. So I think that has something to do with that.
Does it make it that much more tricky?
It is a tricky dough to work with. Yes, it is a tricky dough, and there's some things that are very, very important in working with it. And like at home, I'm forced for people at home are almost forced to use an all-purpose flour. And in the bake shop here, we never ever use all-purpose flour for baking.
So what do you use?
Well, for this particular recipe, if I was in the bake shop here at the school, I would use pastry flour.
Okay.
But at home, it's very, very hard to get pastry flour. So all-purpose flour, it works fine for the home baker. Okay.
So is it just not going to get as fluffy or as a pastry flour would?
I don't think it'll be as crisp.
Okay.
Okay. The outside of the shell. Okay. And we have a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar that we're going to put in there. Okay. That's for a little bit of sweetness, and a lot of chemical things are happening in here. Okay. And then after that, after we've done the water and the salt and the butter, after we bring it up to a simmer.
I was just going to say, it's okay to do that?
Yeah, right up to simmer. Now we're going to add the flour all at once.
Oh.
And watch what happens.
That's a little different, isn't it? Add the flour all at once.
All at once. You don't want to add a little bit at a time, which a lot of times cooking, you do that.
Right.
But in this case, you don't want to do that at all, okay? And if you can see inside the pot here, Kathy, it's all coming to like this ball.
Right.
It just looks like this big ball of dough,
That's good,
okay?
though.
Like so. And what's happening is, all these things are, kind of coming together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to cook this, 30 or 40 seconds or so. And that's only to get rid of the pasty taste, the starchy taste of the flour.
It's putting cookie dough to shame, I have to tell you.
Yeah,
It's looking
really.
really nice.
And you can use this for all different kinds of things. Eclairs, cream puffs, profiteroles. You can use it for donuts, crullers, those types of things, okay? Okay, and that's what you're looking for.
Okay, that looks great.
Looks great, right?
Yeah, it really
now,
does.
what we have to do is we have to come over into the mixer, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to put this stuff into the mixer now, okay?
All right, so we're
Over
going to
here,
switch places.
so we can switch, okay? And one thing that's very important that we do here
Well, that smells very good too.
Right.
Yeah, it does.
Starting to smell like something, right?
It's like something.
Like something.
Like something.
Oh.
Probably smells a little more like something since you were cooking.
Right. Now, Kathy, if you could bust
Here
these
we go.
eggs in a bowl.
My way.
And whenever I bust eggs, yeah, you can do them your way, but whenever I bust eggs, a lot of people put them on the side of the bowl like this. That forces the eggshell actually to go into the egg.
Oh, okay.
You always want to crack an egg on a flat surface.
Oh.
And then put it in to the bowl.
All right, wait.
Like so.
So
Okay?
I'm already going in the wrong direction.
You'll
I
be
know
fine.
I am. Here we go. And then you.
Perfect.
We got.
Perfect.
Yeah, right. You're very kind.
Beautiful.
I would like to do it my way.
That's okay.
That's what I would do.
So it doesn't roll away from
The
you.
one is rolling. Get
There
back
you go.
over here.
Good job.
All right, see. Not quite as pretty.
Hey.
Whatever, but
You
it works.
Got the job done, right?
Yeah, I
We'll
did.
put this up here. Now, one thing you have to do next about this dough, and it's important, you have to let it run on the mixer, and you'll see steam come out of here. If you try to put the eggs in there before the steam rises, what do you think will happen? Yes, it actually starts to scramble the eggs. Okay, so you can see we're going to let that go until that happens. Now, another thing, we have 4 large eggs here, but I really don't know how many it's going to take. The recipe calls for 4.
For 4.
But it doesn't always take all 4.
So what are we looking for in terms of texture or whatever?
Well, we're
to
looking
tell
for
us?
it to be completely incorporated and not to be too stiff, but not to be too loose either. So it's kind of something you have to look for. So I'm going to put the eggs in like one at a time, and then I'm going to start this. I'm going to start this mixer, and you'll see at first it doesn't want to mix at all, and then it comes together like a dough.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So we have a lot to practice. I have to practice cracking eggs your way.
Right.
And I have to practice mixing the eggs in this dough, correct?
Right. And then we're going to add another egg.
Oh.
That other one kind of just slipped in there.
So now what are you going to do?
I think it'll be okay. I think the recipe's probably pretty close, so I think it'll be fine. Okay. Every once in a while we might have to.
I was just going to ask you.
Gonna scrape down the side of this bowl, like so.
I notice you're using a wooden spoon. Does it matter if you use a wooden spoon or
a
rubber spatula?
I like wooden spoons because I don't have to worry about metal on metal then, and I don't have to worry about that taste. You don't want to mix it too long, just long enough, because in baking there's a thing called gluten, and if you mix the gluten too much, it makes things very tough. So you have to be very careful with that. Now we have to fill a pastry bag.
All right.
Okay, so I kind of need your help, Kathy. And when you're filling a pastry bag, you always want to fold it over your hand like so. It comes like a little puppet. Okay? So if you can hold that open for me.
I can do that.
Then we can get this pat of choux dough into the pastry bag. Okay, like so. And you kind of grab onto the side there, just like that. And the reason we fold it over the side is so you don't want to get the pastry dough all over your hands or something.
Right,
if you fold it over your hands like that, then we can kind of force it down into that pastry bag the way we want it to be.
Right, and then when you fold it up, all the dough is still in the bag too, correct?
Exactly.
The dough's in the bag.
The dough's in the bag, and it's very, very important to get it there so we can pipe this out.
It's actually pretty heavy.
It is.
Surprisingly, for as light as the pastry is after it's cooked.
Right.
It feels
and that's
pretty,
one thing that's
pretty
neat about
heavy here.
pat of choux is in the oven, it kind of gets hollow. It kind of blows up. Okay. So now to get that all down to the bottom of the pastry bag. Now, most places use a plain tube to pipe these out. I'm going to use a little bit of they call a star tube to do this because I like the ridge it creates. Now, we're going to pipe this like a cigar, like so, and we try to make them all the same size.
Okay.
You see what I did there? See how I flicked it back? I'm trying to make them all the same size, and sometimes you get a little end like that, and I'm going to show you how to fix that in a second. Okay? We give it a little bit of room.
These are beautiful.
Because they're going to grow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that they're going to get as large as I think they're going to get just from that little strip of pastry dough.
Right. And there's other things you can make from this dough called cream puffs. And I always used to pipe my cream puffs out, much like I'm doing the eclairs here. But then one student said to me one time, he said, hey chef, it takes an awful long time to do that. He said, why don't you just use an ice cream scooper? He said, wouldn't it do the same thing? And I'm always learning things from students. So I said, you know what, you're exactly right. So from that point on, I use the ice cream scooper and I can get them done 3 times faster. Okay? So then we're going to get rid of that. And then I would take a spoon. And right there where that thing started sticking up a little bit, if it sticks up, you're going to have to do this, because what happens, that little nub in the oven,
will it burn?
What's going to happen, it's going to burn. These will go into a 425 degree oven, which is very, very hot, for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then they blow up. They get really big, and they actually get hollow inside, and there's like filled with steam. One thing, another neat thing about this, there's no leavening agent.
Right.
We didn't put any yeast, we didn't put any baking powder, baking soda. So what makes it get so big? And the answer is steam.
Steam.
Steam from the eggs and the water and all those kind of things. When this goes into the oven, when it that heat gets in there, it creates steam, and steam is what's going to make it blow up.
So how does it stay like that?
The gluten in the flour. The gluten in the flour, because there's a lot of gluten in this flour. It kind of helps it stay together. And knowing the correct method, knowing the correct recipe, knowing the correct temperature on the oven will help us get it to that. And it's something you really have to watch, because I've had a lot of these collapse on me.
That's what I was just going to say.
You have to look for the right color.
Okay.
The right color of brown. When it doesn't look eggy anymore, then you turn the oven down to like 375 and let them go until they're ready. And how long is that? I don't know. But when they're nice and brown, and when I tap on them and they sound very hollow, and they seem not to be one to fall down. So you can touch it.
Give it a little tap.
You give it a little tap, and you can find out from there.
All right. Well, let's get these in the oven and see what happens.
Okay. We're going to put these in the oven at 425 degrees.
And it's not convection.
I have convection heat on. Yes, this is convection heat.
That.
Yes, 425 for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then when we turn it down to 375, it might take another 20 minutes or so.
All right.
Then we let them cool down.
All right, and when we return, we're going to make the filling for these very delicious eclairs. We'll see you in just a moment.
Are you looking for a college that's right for you? Luzerne County Community College has more than 100 majors to choose from, convenient class times, and many online courses. Transfer your degree and continue your education at a 4-year college. Work with modern equipment found in the professional world, all at the area's lowest tuition. Make it happen at Luzerne County Community College.
We are back on Cooking Classic, and we're about ready to make the pastry cream for the inside of those wonderful smelling eclairs.
Okay, first thing we're going to do then, Kathy, is we're going to put some milk on the stove. You notice I have sugar in 2 different bowls. So we're going to put half of the sugar and the milk. Can you put that over there, please?
Sure.
And we're going to bring that up to a simmer. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that to happen, we have to separate some eggs. Okay. So what we're going to do, there's a couple of different ways to separate eggs. If you want to do it like this, okay, you can do it like that, or I think it's a lot easier to do it like this.
Oh, how
and
about
some
that?
people, might not be too comfortable with this, but in the kitchen, this is the way I do it. Okay, why? Because it's just a lot faster. As you can see here, we have some different units of measure here. We have a liquid measure and we have a dry measure. You never ever use a liquid measure to measure flour, and vice versa. Liquid, ounce for ounce, always weighs an ounce. Pound for pound always weighs a pound, but flour does not, depending on how aerated it is and that type of a thing. That's why at the school here, we always weigh things. Everything is weighed. Liquids, butters, flours, they're always weighed. Now, to this egg mixture, we're going to add our sugar, okay? And we're going to kind of mix that together. And I was just wondering if you
Me
might
too.
not
Sure, I can
mind
do that.
creaming.
That
That's
I
a thing
can
called
do.
creaming in the bake shop. Now we're going to put our cornstarch in there, okay?
Okay.
And you're going to gingerly mix that around at first, because sometimes if you don't, it just starts to fly out of the bowl. And it's really important to get this really smooth. If you don't get this smooth from the beginning, what happens is you get these little dumplings in your eclair, in your pastry cream. Okay, now we have to do a thing called tempering here. And what temper means is to bring the two liquids to a closer temperature to each other. This is actually cold right now, and this is very hot. If I just dump that into there, there's a chance that the eggs might scramble. Okay? So pardon my reach. I'm going to, if you want to bring that over to here, I'm going to put some of this mixture. I'm going to put some of this mixture into those eggs. If you want to bring the whisk over.
Start now?
Yeah. And I'm going to whisk about a third of that into this egg and cornstarch mixture. And what's going to happen is that cornstarch is going to start to thicken when it gets to a certain temperature. And it's going to help to thicken this pastry cream that we got going on. Okay? Now what you want to do, Kathy, since you've done such a great job, now you're going to pour it all back into that pot.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Whisk in the pot too?
No, we're not going to whisk too much in the pot. And then one thing I have to tell you is once it's to that point, you don't ever want to walk away from it. And that's because once that cornstarch gets to the right temperature, it starts to thicken right away. And if you walk away, I've burnt it many, many times. Okay? So I generally, pastry cream, can you see it on the edge starting to thicken up?
Yes.
So when it starts to get a little bit thicker than that, I'm going to give it a little stir, and you're going to see how beautiful this is going to be. Now I'm whisking it. Once that cornstarch got to the right temperature, what happened? Almost immediately. And now it's to the point now I just turn it right off. Okay? Now we're going to flavor it with vanilla.
Okay.
Now today we're using an extract. Sometimes in the bake shop, if I want a real true flavor, I would have gotten a vanilla bean and split it and put it in with the milk before it started to boil, and that gives you a true vanilla flavor. We're going to stir in some butter.
Butter.
And the butter, thank you. The butter is just going to add. It's just going to add richness.
Oh my gosh, it looks
richness,
so good.
and it's going to give it a shine. Okay.
Yeah, it really is. That's beautiful.
So now I think we're to the point now where we can take this pastry cream out of the pot.
Okay.
And this pastry cream could be used as a pudding. It could be used with fruit. It could be used as a cake filling.
Yeah, it really
could be used for a donut filling. It could be used like we're using it today for an eclair filling. So that's kind of what it looks like.
Okay.
See how nice and smooth it is? It has a beautiful color. We're going to cool this down a little bit now.
Okay.
By then, our shells should be done. After they've been done baking, we'll talk about how to tell when they're done. They get hollow and they get nice and brown on the outside and that kind of thing. And then we're going to make the chocolate topping for this called a ganache. And then we're going to assemble these things when we come back.
All right. So we will be back right after this, and you're not going to want to miss it. We are back, and if this luscious pastry cream wasn't enough, now we're off to chocolate ganache.
Okay, Kathy, now chocolate ganache is one of those sauces that's used all the time in the bake shop, and it starts by using heavy cream. There's no low-fat way to make this as far as I'm concerned, okay? And you scald the heavy cream. That means we've just brought it up to a boil.
Did you ever?
Right? And now it's very, very simple. And I don't like to put chocolate next to fire if I can help it, okay? So I'm going to pour the cream into the pot, and I'm going to stir this around.
I didn't even get a chance to steal any of those chocolates.
They were counted, okay? So we needed all of those. And if you notice, it doesn't look like much right now, does it?
No,
it kind of
really
looks
doesn't.
like, I don't know, it doesn't look good at all. But watch what happens as I stir.
Yeah, I'd be a little afraid if I did that for the first time and I was staring at it thinking, no, what
Now,
did I do?
it's starting to
Oh,
look,
yeah, look
at
at
how
that.
luxurious it looks,
Yeah,
okay?
it does.
And the ganache can be used to top cakes, eclairs, iced donuts.
So all that is heavy cream and chocolate chips.
That's all. Here are our shells. Now they took about, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes in the oven after we turned them down. So what we're going to do is we're going to open them up.
Oh,
And did you
look
see
at
how
that.
hollow they are
Yeah.
inside? What we're
That
going to do
looks
is I'm going to
delicious.
cut these. So if you'd be kind enough, Kathy,
switch
to
trays.
switch trays.
Okay,
I'll take that one.
and here
And then
goes.
you can just,
Is the
go to
clock
town.
running? How's that?
yeah, beautiful.
More?
Okay, a little bit more. And you might find it easier just to leave it on the tray. And sometimes you might have some extra filling left over, the pastry cream.
That is not a
That
problem.
never goes to waste. You could use that with fresh fruit. You could use it to put in between a cake layer.
Yeah, this is incredible.
You could eat it with a spoon, like a pudding. Here we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to flip the lids.
Okay.
And put the lids all the way back on the top, like so. And then I'm just going to take this ganache. And you know, I don't like things to look perfect, okay?
That's
I
why
like-
he doesn't mind having me in the kitchen.
You know, I like things to kind of look homemade, okay? So, and you know, homemade usually means rustic, and
Right.
it means it's not perfect.
I don't know. These are looking pretty perfect,
So
though.
we're going to put as much ganache as we want to on the top. Now, of course, everybody wants more chocolate, but there's a point where it's too much, and it just starts to run down the side, and so.
Oh my gosh,
okay?
these look delicious.
So we're going to put them like so. We have a nice presentation plate. We can kind of put these on our plate like
Yeah, that
so.
looks gorgeous.
Just think you're at a picnic or something. You were instructed to bring a dessert. And I'll tell
And
you,
this
this
was it.
dessert is really not that hard to make. As you could see, it took us about a half an hour to make it on TV.
Right.
After you get used to making the dough.
I was going to say the dough's probably the trickiest part of all, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason I have gloves on, Kathy, is in the bake shop we try to teach, you know, when you're gonna touch food that's not going to be cooked again. So these are our finished eclairs, okay?
They look terrific. Are you going to bite into one?
Well, I guess I can try one, okay? Now I hope it doesn't go all over my jacket, okay?
That's why I'm letting him do it, just so you know. Oh, they look great. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Cooking Classic. We're going to have dessert first tonight.